Hello everybody, hope you guys are enjoying your day. Today we're going to be looking at a developing nor'easter off the shore of southern North Carolina there. It's going to be moving up the east coast and impacting parts of the mid-Atlantic and the northeast. We've become a little bit more uncertain with this forecast as we've gone on with time. The models have really shifted, some going further west, some going all the way off the shore. So we have a lot to decipher in today's video, so we're going to be going over all of that. I also have my personal storm track forecast as well as my personal hurricane intensity forecast, wind speed forecast, and also my personal rainfall forecast. Now, also something I want to mention, I am going to be uploading my first preliminary fall forecast for the year of 2020. That's going to be coming out tomorrow as of when I'm recording this, so that would actually be the 10th, so that would be Friday the 10th at 3 p.m. Eastern Time or 12 p.m. Pacific Time. So definitely be there to watch that. I have my temperature anomaly forecast, my precipitation anomaly forecast, and my overall forecast at the end of the video. So you really don't want to miss it. So here is your current National Weather Service page over parts of the Southwest. We have some excessive heat warnings over the South Central. We have some heat advisories as well as for parts of Florida, parts of the Ohio Valley and Great Lakes, and then also for parts of the interior northeast. We also have some groups of some heat advisories. We have some severe thunderstorm watches, one there around eastern Iowa, and then another one for a little intersection between Missouri, Arkansas, and also eastern Oklahoma. And then we have some red flag warnings in effect for southern Utah. Other than that, not too much going on. Really, the main feature currently is that tropical disturbance and also the extreme heat over parts of the central and eastern United States. So here is current Invest 98L, and this is your tropical disturbance off the coast of North Carolina. This is going to be moving northward, and within the next about 2 to 3 days, it should be off the shore of the Delmarva and impacting parts of the Mid-Atlantic and the Northeast. It has an 80% chance of development within the next 48 hours, and within the next 5 days, also an 80% chance of development, and that's from the National Hurricane Center. Here is your disturbance that's just south of Christina, has a 0% chance within the next 48 hours. Within the next 5 days, it has a 60% chance of development. And you see Christina right there. I'm not going to talk about that in today's video. We've talked about that about 2 or 3 times, maybe even 4 times already. So I'm not going to talk about that again. And it's really not going to impact too many areas, especially no real areas that have any population or any land on it. So it's mainly going to be out to sea and nothing really too impactful from it. And the Central Pacific currently has no tropical cyclones expected within the next 5 days, but of course that could change. Now, here is your current Invest 98L, and that is again off the shore of southern North Carolina. I would say probably about 100 miles or so, or maybe even just 50 miles offshore of southern North Carolina. So here is your key messages for this disturbance, and I'm going to read them out real quick. Here, for the first key message, they say an area of low pressure is located just offshore of the North Carolina coast. This system is likely to become a tropical or subtropical depression as it moves north and northeastward near or just offshore of the North Carolina Outer Banks later today, and then along the mid-Atlantic coast tonight through Friday night. This system is expected to produce locally heavy rainfall that could cause some flash flooding across portions of eastern North Carolina, the coastal mid-Atlantic, and southern New England during the next few days. Gusty winds are also possible along the North Carolina Outer Banks today and along portions of the mid-Atlantic coast and southern New England Friday and Saturday. Interests in these areas should monitor the progress of the system and refer to products from your local National Weather Service office. So here is your model track guidance from these models, and these are your main models, and you basically have two different groups. You have these groups that want to keep it just offshore, and that would be the models that would be in the blue models, the pink model, and the gray model. So those three models are the models that are basically keeping it offshore. Now, the rest of these models are all the ones that are keeping it onshore, which would actually lead to more flooding, especially through eastern Pennsylvania, parts of Delaware, and also into eastern Maryland, and basically for the entire Delmarva, you would probably have rainfall accumulation of over 5 inches of rainfall. So that could definitely cause some issues. If this stays offshore, that's where you're going to get the scenario where you actually have gustier winds for all of these areas, pretty much from Boston to Washington, D.C. That's the area where you're going to see the gustiest winds if this stays offshore. Right now, it's looking kind of like a hybrid model, kind of what this gray line right here, this is TVCX model. That kind of looks like what's more likely right now, kind of something in between both of these two scenarios. So that is something that we need to keep an eye on, and that is something that's been changing since when I last made a video on that. That's really the biggest change that we've seen, and it's a fairly drastic change given that we're only a couple of days out from this making landfall. Now, here are your GEFS storm tracks. These have been further to the west. This is probably the most west-based model. And you see, this is the GFS ensemble models. Again, most of them have it hitting landfall over the Delmarva, then moving into New Jersey and eastern Pennsylvania, and moving all the way up the Hudson Valley. So here is the GEPS models. This is the Canadian models which want to actually take this offshore. So most of these models are offshore of the northeast coast. Now, here is the model intensity guidance, and we actually do have a couple of these models. I would say about 4 models bring this to a tropical storm within the next 2 to 4 days. So something that we have to keep an eye on. Also, with this westward track, we've seen most of these models actually downgrade from a lot of them were expecting a tropical storm. Now, a lot of them actually aren't. They're expecting a high in tropical depression. So, this is mainly just dependent on which track that you're going to take. If you're going to take an offshore track, the ocean temperatures are well above average over parts of the Northeast and Mid-Atlantic, so you could definitely support some sort of tropical storm. If this really makes impact with the Delmarva first and landfalls there, that's where you're going to actually see many of these models fall into place, where you're actually just going to see a steady decline in the wind speeds, and that would in turn lead to just a tropical depression, and it wouldn't be tropical storm Faye, probably just a tropical depression. So here is the European ensemble model guidance on the probability of having a tropical depression form, and we have about a 90 to 95% chance. So any time between now and the next time I upload another video, or maybe even the next upload, we'll probably have a tropical depression to talk about. So I won't be uploading tomorrow. The only thing that I'll be uploading is my fall forecast, of course. So I can't make an upload tomorrow. So you're gonna have to wait until probably the 11th, the day after, which is when I'll inform you guys on this. So we'll have a lot of the time for these models to really get to know what they really want to do with this. So here is your Weather Prediction Center 1 to 5 day rainfall totals, and I think these are a bit underdone. The Weather Prediction Center are kind of going a little bit more inland and tracking with these models. It would be something like this, where over eastern New Jersey is where you would really see that impact of landfall, and anywhere in those darkest shades of purple, that's between 2 and 2.5 inches of rainfall. In the dark reds, that's where you're between 2 and 3 inches. In the lighter reds, that's 3 to 4 inches, and in the when you're starting to get into kind of the orange shades, that's where you're in 4 to 5, and then in that deep orange, that's 5 to 7 inches. So we do have some areas that are nearing that 4 inch mark, or maybe even 5 inches. I think the Weather Prediction Center is kind of stuck in a little bit of predicament. They don't really want to stick to kind of one solution, and they kind of want to have a median between both of them, just in case one solution ends up winning out. So this isn't probably the most reliable currently to look at, because they're kind of going in between two different scenarios, and that's kind of how I'm feeling right now. It's a little bit tricky to kind of figure out what is going to happen with this storm. Here's your excessive rainfall outlook for today over parts of southern New Jersey, into Delaware and the Delmarva, and then into easternmost, pretty much southeast Virginia, northeast North Carolina. We have a 5 to 10% chance of excessive rainfall. Now, for tomorrow, we actually have a 5 to 10% chance of excessive rainfall, and that's over everywhere pretty much in the coastal northeast and mid-Atlantic areas. So here is your day 3 outlook, and it's mainly for coastal and pretty much all of New England, except for the far northern sections there, where you have a 5 to 10% chance of seeing some excessive rainfall, and that's also from the Weather Prediction Center. So here is my personal track from this, and my cone has widened very, very significantly, and I don't want to leave out the outside chance that this never makes landfall really, and it just moves south of Cape Cod. That is definitely a possibility, but it's not looking that likely currently. We also have the predicament with these models where some are going offshore, kind of like this. others are going straight into parts of the Delmarva and into Pennsylvania and New Jersey, which would lead to a little bit more rainfall, but also it would weaken the storm quite significantly, and you probably wouldn't see a tropical storm with that scenario. This is between today and the 13th. That's the time frame that we're looking at. So here is my intensity guidance for this, and this is my hand-drawn map here. And I think it is going to become a weak tropical storm because I do think this will be just offshore to the point where it's still getting that moisture from the ocean, still over those warmer waters than typical. And I think that still will help it bring it to a very low-end tropical storm. I think it's going to be sustained winds of just about 34 knots, 35 knots, or about 39 miles per hour, just at that threshold. And then once it makes landfall, probably between the 3 to 4 day time frame, or the 2 to 3 day time frame, really, it's gonna drastically drop down to probably a tropical depression, then shortly fall to a post-tropical cyclone. That's what I personally am forecasting. Now, here's my rainfall outlook, and we're looking at under an inch of rainfall in any of these lighter green areas. This is also going through the 13th. Now, 1 to 2 inches of rainfall are expected in this kind of darker shade of green over anywhere from eastern North Carolina all the way up to Maine. Now, here is your 2 to 3 inch area, and this is pretty much again from northeastern North Carolina to about New Hampshire there. And then we even have a 3 to 5 inch region. That's for southern New Jersey, the Delmarva, and a little bit of eastern Virginia there, where I am expecting probably on the lower end of that, probably 3 or 4 inches of rainfall. But don't I would definitely not be too surprised if some isolated areas, probably in the Delmarva, are gonna maybe see close to 5 inches, but that will probably be localized and probably not as widespread as the rest of those totals. So here's your wind speeds, and we see pretty much all the way up the East Coast, except for parts of the deep South. You're seeing probably just 10 to 20 mile per hour wind speeds, and this is again in miles per hour. Now, 20-30 mile per hour wind speeds, this is your maximum wind gust forecast. So this isn't sustained wind speeds. This is your maximum wind gusts that you would see from this storm, or at least what is forecasted. And that would be 20 to 30, anywhere from Virginia all the way up to western Maine. Now, 30 to 45 mile per hour gusts, and this is your final layer here, and that would be anywhere from northeast Virginia to about all of Massachusetts, pretty much. So anywhere between there is where you could expect, especially if this stays offshore, you could expect 30 to 45 mile per hour wind speeds. Now, something I also want to show you here is what the European model is doing in terms of your wave heights, because I really don't think this is going to be a particularly good weekend to be out on the beach, because we are going to have some wave heights that are going to be at about 10 to even 15 feet high. And to give you a little bit of context, if we go back a little bit, currently your wave heights are about 2 to 4 feet over much of the Northeast. So that is a drastic increase. So these are wave heights that will probably be twice, maybe even 3 times your height. So definitely not a good day to be out on the beach. And rip current risk is also going to be going pretty high. Now, this is going to be by Friday morning, starting to see those high waves for parts of the Delmarva, also probably for North Carolina, although it is out of this frame. And then also for coastal New Jersey, probably seeing those very high wave heights. And then as we start to move further north, and we get into Saturday morning, that's when the highest wave heights are going to probably hit parts of New Jersey, Long Island, and then through parts of southeastern New England. Now, you do see in between Long Island and Connecticut, you do see a little bit lower wave heights, and that's just because you're not in you're kind of blocked by Long Island. That's kind of blocking those higher wave heights. So maybe that Long Island Sound could be a nice area to kind of go to the beach at, but still some rip current risk with that. And then it moves up into parts of Maine, New Hampshire, Massachusetts with those very high wave heights. So that's just something I want to show you guys, because it is going to be fairly dangerous out, especially on the beaches, on the shore. So definitely, if you are going to go to the beach, take precaution, and I would advise you not to go in the water. Even though it is getting very, very warm, especially those water temperatures, really don't advise going out in the water. It is going to be fairly, fairly dangerous, and you would probably be putting your life at risk. So that is going to wrap it up for today's video. Again, don't miss out on my fall forecast, 3 p.m. Eastern Time tomorrow, or 12 p.m. Pacific Time. So definitely don't miss out on that, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Goodbye.